You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
This is the Daniel Monday Night Community Show on demand through YouTube. Thank you very much for choosing to listen to us through this method. If you'd like to keep up to date with when I add new interviews, then subscribe to this channel. So we're now going to be talking to Will Palin on the phone, and it's one of our updates on the Dockyard Church. Will, firstly, thank you for talking to our listeners.
Thanks, Daniel. It's good to hear you, and it's good to be able to update everyone on what's been going on.
Well, there's been a couple of things happening. I was firstly hoping you can tell our listeners about the community event, sort of open day you had a couple of weeks ago, firstly.
Sure. This was an event that was organised as part of the grant that we got from the Heritage Lottery Fund, and we developed a programme of activities for a day, really to introduce the church to the people of Sheppey, many of whom haven't been there for a long time, some of which have never seen it and have just looked at it as a forlorn ruin and wanted to find out a bit more. And this was an opportunity for both schools and the public to come and find out more about the building and what our plans are for its future.
Now, I come along on that day, and I couldn't believe just how many people turned up to see the building.
Yeah, it was kind of overwhelming. We had a busy morning initially with the schools, and several schools, primary schools from the island and the academy, came along, and that was great. Brilliant response and from them. But then in the afternoon, we opened it to the public in general, and we had something like 400 people during the course of the afternoon. Great queue stretching right down past the church and the paddock in front. Everyone very good-humoured and enjoying themselves. And for us, it was a very moving thing to have so many people so interested come to see the church.
I think it was a good opportunity for you to sort of find out what people thought about the church and what they'd like to see, and also a chance to speak to people about their memories as well from when the church was still in more sort of operational times.
That's exactly right, Daniel. I think, first of all, on that last point, it was very moving to hear some accounts from people who had been married in the church or christened there or been in the choir. And there was one elderly gentleman who I helped walk down the aisle in the middle of this. As you know, it's a roofless shell, but you can still walk through what was the central aisle down to the altar. And I walked down with him, and he was explaining to me that he had been married there 60 years ago, and that was when he'd last been in the church, walking down the aisle with his wife-to-be. So it was a very moving experience to hear some of these recollections. And after that, of course, as people left, we asked them to produce a response and fill in a questionnaire to tell us what they wanted to see in the church in the future, because of course our plan is to make it a building that has a community use, and it was great to hear people's responses to that.
And I think also you've been sort of celebrating the launch of the trust as well, I understand.
Absolutely. We have now set up our new preservation trust that will very shortly take ownership of the building from the Spitalfields Trust, which has been holding it on a sort of interim basis. So that was our first event, and then we had a little launch party as well last week to celebrate the setting up of the new trust.
Was there anything else you'd like to cover, Will?
I think it's really just to let people know that the project is now gaining momentum. We need everyone's support, and anybody has any ideas or can give help in kind or has any other contribution they feel they can make. It doesn't have to be financial. It can be, in all sorts of other ways. But we really need everyone to rally around now and keep the project invigorated and energized. And people can find out what's going on our website and Twitter account and indeed the Facebook page, which Daniel, you've been very helpful in setting up and keeping going.
Well, as always, I'd like to thank you for updating our listeners, and I look forward to catching up with you at the next stage of the project.
Thanks a lot, Daniel. Pleasure to talk as ever.